I know it's been a while, and I've been kind of working on my vlog type stuff and my sort of usual content, and I've mentioned in the past that I was going to be trying out new things, and all that stuff, but here's where that starts, and here's where my hair gets messed up. But yeah, I wanted to try something different and sort of tell a story, except these are all true. I want to tell my story as a disabled person and sort of give a perspective for people who might be in a similar situation to mine, although I can't speak for everybody in the disabled community, of course, and to also sort of give a little bit of insight into what it's like as a disabled person to able-bodied folks, because basically I want to make the world sort of more aware and try and make things a little more, something that people can consciously think about when they think about accessibility and, other disabled people in your life, or just if you ever come across someone who happens to be a disabled person, because there are so many things that, like, able-bodied people, you need to get it together. Like, no offense, but you're doing some stuff wrong. You're doing some stuff right. A little bit. It's a little bit correct. But other things, please listen to the community. But this project of mine is something I'm going to be calling the Disabled Commentary, a little bit of a funky play on words there. And it's just going to be sort of a series of me telling my own story of my life, basically, in a sort of narrative fashion, but it's all 100% true. I'm not making anything up. I'm not exaggerating anything. And to be honest, the name Disabled Commentary probably already exists, but I've already written 3 of these little script things, so I am going to be reading off this, basically, but that doesn't make it any less, first of all, true. It doesn't make it any less valid. It's a lot of experiences for certain things where I had to reference other people because I was not cognitively aware yet, because I was so young, or just born, or or in reference to other people that I know who, I know someone's parents, or I know someone personally, who it's like, okay, I need to reach out to you to get your side of things, not just my own, and to explain certain aspects of, like, diagnoses and stuff like that, and medical terms-ish that I don't know a lot about personally, even though I have them, or friends I have them. So, like I said, can't speak for everybody, because everybody's experience as a disabled person is different. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now and get on to actually telling you part 1 of the story, which is the title of this video. The reason why one of my best friends can't visit my school. So let's get into it. I didn't even think of it on that first day. I was too distracted, too afraid and excited and overwhelmed to even let the obvious into my mind as I walked into my college campus, the heat of the day boiling my back before being swept away by the relief of the dry, cool AC. The temperature checks, the open phone in my hand, the book bag with my laptop stuffed into it. It was weighing me down already, and I'd barely gotten through the door. Of course, orientation week had given me a vague idea of what rooms were where, and who to reach out to for scheduling and finances, but other than that, I was nearly on my own. I paid no mind as I climbed up the short set of stairs to get to the elevator, the sweat now making me shiver in the blasting mechanical cold as I went. But I could already feel my back and shoulders starting to ache as I waited for what felt like forever for that blasted elevator to slowly make its way to the main floor. I watched as most people took the stairs, in too much of a hurry to wait for the clunky old box that shimmied its way down slower than oil paint dries. When it finally opened up, it felt like salvation. One step closer to setting my stuff down, and, even more importantly, sitting down, as the tension in my legs was already killing me. That's how I started my time in college. Stairs to get to the elevator, and impossible to carry materials on my back and in my hands. For anyone, this is tiring, No one really likes carrying hugely oversized paper and clipboards, the backpack full of laptop junk and textbooks you might open once or twice, and for someone like me, who has cerebral palsy, it's even more of a challenge. Luckily, I found solutions to both those problems. Sort of. But that's a story for another time. My most important discovery, though, was a contraption I had never used or even seen before. After asking around and talking to staff members, I was made aware of the lift. The lift is, in short, a sort of off-brand, slower elevator built for one person, and usually it's meant for wheelchair users. This lift, however, sparked many a heavily worded paper, as it is honestly a sad excuse of a solution for accessibility. I have a cart that I carry my supplies in, and I can barely squeeze myself in the cart in. Entering that lift for the first time was akin to being put in a glass cage that was only slightly faster than the elevator is. It's cramped, it's slow, and you can't even control it yourself. Even after getting the go-ahead to use it, I had, and still have, to ask our security guard to use the key, and to use the key to control it from the outside to let me up. What am I supposed to do if the guard isn't there? And to make matters worse, I'm certainly not the only person affected by this. Not only do I know other students who didn't know about the lift until I brought it up, and also students who agree that the whole system is outright idiotic, but I also know someone who wouldn't be able to even visit my campus aside from the small first floor area. He's one of my best friends, and some of you may have actually seen him in brief moments in some of my videos before. My friend is actually Toby's brother, Jack. You may have seen Toby in a couple vlogs recently. Jack and I share one of the same diagnoses, cerebral palsy, or CP. Now, as with any disability, we both have very different experiences and very different ways of life. With my CP, I can walk and talk and use most of my body like most able-bodied people, sort of. That's not to say it's all perfect, of course. The twitches that run throughout my legs almost constantly make me uncomfortable. Walking is a struggle for long periods of time. I get worn out more easily than other people and have to sit down and take a break. And I've had a number of physical therapies and other treatments to help me along, but again, that's all something to be talked about another time. Now, Jack is a totally different case. He uses a wheelchair to get around, specifically a motorized chair that was custom built for him and his needs. He has a very limited function of his arms and hands, and not enough strength to stand on his own. On top of that, his speech and mental capabilities are quite limited. He relies on people like his mother and his brothers to help him out constantly, and doesn't really have independence in the way that you or I do. I know he would never be able to use that lift. He would need his mother with him, and there's not enough room for him and her together on top of his wheelchair. It's too cramped, too loud, and less of a convenient tool than most people would think, if they even think about it at all. It's literally a 3x3 foot space, a square of nothing, and while it may be enough for some, it's not enough for someone like Jack, and hell, it's barely enough for me. It's not fair for either of us, and something needed to be done. So, with him and many others in mind, I wrote paper after paper in my English classes about that very lift, among other accessibility issues on a more broad scale. Yet I didn't have the courage to send any of them to the president, or even the dean of students. I was terrified of getting expelled or reprimanded in some way. Every time my finger hovered over that email send button, I questioned if I should even be fighting this fight. I had no one in the school backing me up at the time. Not really. I hadn't even told my friends about it. So I kept it in my assignments, never to be seen by a higher-level staff member. Until, on a whim one day, I saw the president in his office. The door was open, light pouring through the window that afternoon, practically begging me to step in and say something. The president sat at his computer, so focused on work that he didn't notice me enter his doorframe until I politely knocked on the wooden siding. He greeted me in that way almost every school staff person does. An instant, polite smile, all the stress leaking into that strained grin as a "What can I do for you?" escaped his mouth. That is to say, there's always the slightest hint of "why are you bothering me" somewhere on them. Though I have to admit he was very good at hiding it. In that moment, he seemed as friendly and genuine as he always seemed to be. And even looking back now, I still believe the president of my school is probably one of the most caring and actually genuine people out of the bunch. However, as I fumbled with my words, realizing then that I had no idea what I was doing, and trying to explain what I wanted from him, that smile turned into a more serious expression as we organized a meeting plan for talking about some accessibility issues. Looking back, I could not have worded it more vaguely and poorly. But the date was now set, and I would have half an hour to talk to the president of my very college about all the things I wanted to bring up, and the most unanimously agreed one being the lift, according to family and my fellow disabled friends alike. That fateful Wednesday finally came around. 4 o'clock sharp, if I remember it right. Weeks of fearful hesitation after all my research and admittedly poorly gathered testimony and notes from my friends was going to finally culminate in a conversation I was wholly unprepared for. Still, naive little me walked into that cool building with a shred of confidence, my notes and my mind made up. No turning back now as I walked up those blasted stairs, passing the elevator as I headed for his open office door. And that's where I'm going to leave this story for now. The next part is going to go into more detail about the meeting and what went down. And you may have noticed that I had said at the beginning that it's going to be like, oh, my entire life. We'll get to that eventually. I think it's important to set up sort of a context for why I'm doing this in the first place, and the main reason is because accessibility is so complex and complicated, and often not enough, even in big city areas where you would think, oh yeah, like this is totally a place where most buildings are accessible and you can go in with your wheelchair. Even in a place like New York City, it's not perfect. Even I don't have all the answers. I don't think there is any one single answer, but I do want to bring awareness to these issues and make other people sort of think about how the structure of these things and how other people think about disabled people affects disabled people, because there is so much stigma, and especially with, I would say, a lot of able-bodied, inexperienced people who don't know other disabled people or don't have a disabled child or what have you. It's kind of a slippery slope when it really shouldn't be. So that's part of what this all is. And of course, I want to sort of emphasize leaving a comment on this video. I know I'm usually not the type to be like and subscribe and comment down below, but if you have any questions for me, any questions regarding how to approach things, at least from my perspective, feel free to leave them below. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and get ready for part 2. Ooh, the meeting. Ooh. Bye.